This is Maharajas of Scale, a podcast where we go behind the scenes and talk to founders who are demolishing the myths around building and scaling a big business in India. These are the stories that have shattered the assumptions around Indian consumers and are changing the game completely. I am Krishna Jonakadla, serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Flit, the fashion locator in town, and startup mentor, bringing you these stories. Hey everyone, this is Krishna Jonakadla, your host at Maharajas of Scale. Today we have a young SaaS entrepreneur. For those of you who haven't listened to our earlier episodes on SaaS, Social Pilot and Upeka from Prasanna Krishnamurthy, you should do that. You know, SaaS is the future. It is the thing that is going to create a lot of wealthy people and a lot of success for India. And we have a young and dynamic entrepreneur today with us, Amit of iMocha. Amit, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Krishna. Really excited for Maharajas of Scale.
Awesome, Amit. This is our very first video version. We've mostly done audio versions. We've done only audio versions of our episodes in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how this one works out. A lot of our listeners have asked us for a video version. So awesome. I feel super excited to kick this off with you. So Amit, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on right now.
Sure. So Krishna, I'm born and brought up in a place, Amravati, which is a city in Maharashtra, a small city in Maharashtra, and born and brought up in a slums actually. Okay. So though my father and mother, like both are very well educated, but my father has spent whole of life in upliftment of poor and needies, and he decided to stay in slums. And we have been staying in slums still in Amravati, though I'm in Pune now. And he runs a school, and he got us into a municipality Marathi medium school. So I started my education in municipality school. So started my first, and no KG1, KG2, no nursery, clean first, okay, and up to 10th was in Marathi medium, and started my education through government school and ended up at Government College of Engineering, Amravati, which is the native engineering college, best engineering college in that locality. So started my education in Amravati, 1 to 10th in Marathi, then science, then got a computer engineering degree in Government College of Engineering, Maharashtra, and then like every other Amravatian, we came to Pune. So we go to typically to Pune for a job. If you have done a computer engineering, you don't have any jobs locally there. So I came to Pune. It was 2001 initial, and that was the time it was a .com bust. It took me 3-4 months to hunt for a job. I landed up into a small company as a software developer. Then soon I was able to get into IBM Software Lab, IBM's lab division, which is into Pune, and was working there as a lead in 3-4 years of my professional career experience. But because I'm a talkative, and though I'm a techie, but more of a person who handles person well, who connects with people well, they wanted me to soon shift to US Austin, their Austin lab. And somehow I never wanted to like I would say shift out of India, somehow wanted to go to Amravati every month, and still I do that. Even in Corona times, I had been to visit my father 3 times so far. It's a 12-hour journey though from here, but I wanted to stay in India. So I left IBM just because they wanted me to shift to US. Got a short stint at HSBC GLT. And HSBC GLT is a technical division of HSBC Bank. And again, after working there for a while, they wanted me to go to Geneva because it was a Geneva-based HSBC customer. And again, I didn't wanted to shift to US. So, and by that time, I was in love and about to get married. So, and so I thought this is the right time. My wife should not get used to a fat salary. Let me do something which is on my own and let me not shift to US or Geneva. Let me be in Pune, where I can visit Amravati every now and then. And that was my sole intention of getting into entrepreneurship. Okay, nothing fancy. I didn't wanted to go to I didn't wanted to settle abroad. And somehow, because I'm talkative, all services company or product company wanted me to go to US or something. I didn't wanted to do that. Though I go there now also, but never wanted to shift there. So that's how I landed into entrepreneurship. Was working with IBM on shifting IBM technologies to, because IBM Lotus Notes was a technology. So started my company along with Sujit, who is still a co-founder in iMocha. So my first company was IT services company, IT service venture, and in 3-4 years, did a good job. Grew that company to around 100 people in IT services, and with customers from Middle East, India, and of course US. And then while working in IT services, realized that that time I wanted to get into IT services. There was one more reason, because I wanted to create, when I got into entrepreneurship, I thought, let me create more and more jobs in the country. And in my 5 years of IT services entrepreneurship career, I was able to create 450 freshers job in that 5 years. So I was happy. Okay, I did something good. Then realized that India as a country has matured in IT services to a certain extent, and it's a time where our equity should not go with the customer when we deliver the project, and it should stay, and IP should stay with India. And by that time has got exposure to how Silicon Valley is working, and that's how and again, while I was working in IBM, IBM is a product culture company, right? So in those 5 years of IT services company, each year I used to earn whatever we used to earn, Sujit and us, we used to put back into product. And in 5 years we tried 5 products but never sold it. Okay, so we thought moonlighters cannot do a great job. If you want to do something significant, you need to be a sunlight who shines in the morning and sets up in the evening. It's a problem with moon, right? Sometimes Amavasya, sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger. So thought, let's exit IT services and try our luck in SaaS. And that time SaaS was new, almost 5.5 years back. And I always say IT services and SaaS product is altogether a different version. So IT services is like washing dishes, and SaaS product is like creating your own Vim. Okay, so washing dishes business is altogether different from a business of creating a Vim product. Okay, so first of all, you will get only 10 rupees. In washing dishes, you will get 1,000 rupees. You just need to show the case studies to get another work. For even selling a small product, you need to have that product made. So for that mentality, we got into GenNext, which is an startup accelerator, run by used to be powered by Microsoft, and there unlearn IT services and learn a little bit of SaaS. Then I ran it for 2 years, was fascinated with the likes of Zoho and Freshworks that time. So didn't thought much, because Freshworks logo was green. I put my logo as green and started that. In 2.5 years, was able to grow to 10K MRR through online as a media with customers from 60 countries. Okay, but only 10K MRR. So 10K USD I'm talking about. Then in one of my conversation with one of the guy in Chennai, he asked me, are you saying it proudly? For 10K MRR, 60 countries and 600 customers, and that really pinpointed me. Oh, guy, am I on the right path or wrong path? And fortunate to get into Upeka that time. Okay, and then in 3 years, from 10K MRR, from serving a $49 a month package, now I got into a mode where we have more than 2 million in ARR, so almost 20 times in last 3 years. In terms of our MRR, our average selling price was $49 a month, $600 a year. Now we have a couple of customers paying us $250K annually. A few of them 100K and others 30K. So good journey. Who has seen Marathi medium municipality school with all friends who are working still on some panthila and selling vegetables and working at cloth shops and all. So born and brought up and played with them, got into engineering, came here, tried my luck in services, worked in our favor to certain extent, got into product, and so far so good.
Awesome. So, when several years ago, maybe more than a decade ago, when I was in the US, there was a gentleman who said, whenever you ask somebody a question, ask them a question where you don't get a yes or a no, but you get a multi-paragraph answer, right? So this is a classic example of a multi-paragraph answer, right? But it's full of inspiration. That's terrific. So speaking, before I peel all the layers of the onion that you've thrown at me, and then I come back with question after question. In Doordarshan, on Doordarshan, there used to be a serial called Amravati. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's Andhra ka Amravati ki katha hai.
Correct. So it used to be, I think the opening song used to be Krishna Tat Par.
Yeah. I remember that, Krishna. So though that Amravati is now a capital of I guess Andhra Pradesh. So
Correct.
That's Amravati, THI. Mine is Amravati in Maharashtra. But yeah, that's real.
So there are two. I didn't. For some reason, I was under the impression that Amravati and this Amravati were the same. And because in Andhra, the current capital has been named as Amravati, right? It wasn't Amravati. It has been named as Amravati. But I thought that the Amravati that you are from is the same Amravati that's referenced in the stories, isn't it?
No.
I see. Okay. As someone from Andhra Pradesh, I must admit, while I know a lot, this is something I'm learning for the first time.
Yeah, no. Our Amravati is called as Indrapuri, where Krishna and that Kaudanyapur wala story, some mythology stories there. So I'm very passionate about Amravati, no in and out about Amravati.
But that was amazing. You grew up in the slums, and eventually you said no to few chances of relocating to the US. And though it continued to be, you talk about being inspired by Silicon Valley and the things that they did there, and eventually being, I would say, bitten by the SaaS bug, like what Girish and Sridhar are doing, who I think are doing a terrific job, and getting to where you are. So there are three ventures from there. But let's go back to that the slum angle a little bit, right? There is a guy called Sanjeev Sanyal. Does the name ring a bell? So,
Sorry.
Sanjeev Sanyal is the principal economic advisor or the chief economic advisor, one of the two. But he's a man with a tremendous sense of history. He is the economic advisor, was the economic advisor, I think, during the first term of Modi government as well. He's written 3 or 4 books. One is called The Ocean of Churn, and the other one is The Land of Seven Rivers. And there's another book called The Indian Renaissance. And the funny thing is, the beauty of his books is that they go into a great deal of economic history of India as well. We've read a lot of political history, but we've not read a lot of economic history, right? For instance, there are 2 Guptas. One was the Mauryas, which was the Chandragupta Maurya the Mauryan dynasty, and then there is a later on Guptas, represented by the 400-year age of the golden age of the Gupta period, right? In I think The Land of Seven Rivers, he talks about in 4th century AD, the economy of India, especially under the Gupta period, was so advanced that there used to be if you understand this phrase called man about town, which means okay, weekend mein kya karoge, masti karna hai. So
Right.
So there used to be a book. When you go to an English bookstore, when I was a teenager, I would go to an English bookstore and then I would find books like, okay, easy pickup lines for boys, to pick up girls, stuff like that. Then Forget pickup lines, dude. In India, people don't even approach a girl. Forget actually using one. Yeah. And then when I read Sanjeev Sanyal says that there used to be a manual on how to have fun.
Okay.
Fourth century AD, right? We are in 21st century now. Yeah. So, and then the reason I'm saying that is, I'll come to the context. Dharavi, which is supposedly, I think, either Asia's largest slum or the world's largest slum. He says people externally always perceive these as slums, but internally they are economic engines and then economic powerhouses. And we've heard quite a few stories about enterprises coming out of Dharavi, which was that Ranveer Singh movie, that the rapper movie. That was supposed to be inspired by true events of a rapper from Dharavi, right? Gully Boy, yeah. Gully Boy, right? So interesting. But talk to us about that. So your father ran a school there, and what inspired them to do that? They were professionals. That's very fascinating. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Krishna, first of all, if you understand my surname Mishra, okay, Mishra is not a typical Maharashtrian surname, right? It's a surname from north. Okay,
right. Mostly
okay. Though I speak Marathi,
Uttar Pradesh.
Uttar Pradesh, right? So I heard that we migrated 110, 20 years back from Uttar Pradesh. I speak Marathi better than Hindi though. Okay. And so what happened? My father, when his forefathers landed in Amravati, wherever there was a dense population, there used to be people used to migrate, and then those dense population became over a period of time basti or slums, and people migrated to other colonies and high posh areas. So the place where I stay, there, for example, if you see, it's 7,000-8,000 people slums, out of which there are communities staying, okay, like communities of butchers, communities of cobblers, community of sweepers, and communities of I would say 7-8 different. Typically, it used to be divided by caste and work earlier, right? And we were only the family which was educated, I guess, and at that time, maybe that's what I heard from my father, that's what that time, a Brahman family used to be a family who will do a lot of education and all. So we have been staying there since 110 years, right? So my father also born and brought up there, okay. And when he born and brought up, and he got a chance because of an educated family to pursue his education in arts. My father even had a love marriage that time, okay, almost 45-50 years back, okay. So he born and brought up with them, and always he saw that education is the main thing because of which people are not able to uplift themselves. They don't know, and many times it's a viral loop. Okay, they keep on doing that. Moreover, I'll talk about myself. When I grew up there, though I was playing with all people, and I was the only one who pursued my education after 10th, 12th. All of them dropped somehow, and after school. So what I realized that this start. So typically you won't believe. Once I was talking to my mother and asked that, hey, Hari, Jaggi, and Sachin, these were my 3 friends. They started earning some 1,200 rupees while one was doing his family work of laundry. Second one was selling sabji, and third one was chane bechta hai na, so he used to sell that. So I said, Ma, you want me to study for 8-10 years more? By that time these guys will be millionaires. They are earning 1,200 rupees every month, okay, and by that time I will become something and will start earning 7,000-8,000. These guys would have earned so many things and stuff like that. yeah, Amir ho gaye honge and stuff like that. But my mother used to say, whatever money you need, take it from money, but keep studying and make sure that you remember all these things. Okay, that's about the only thing she wanted. And when I passed, like unfortunately, out of my 10 friends, 8-10 friends, 3 of them died just by having more liquor and stuff like that. Okay. Wow. Others, even like, I won't talk about charity part of my life, but yeah, we help them. Like a couple of them are studying again from my so like what Girish and Sridhar are inspiration to us. We are also like a kind of ecosystem where when we study, by looking at us, by in that ecosystem, people studied, and now we have 7 engineers from my locality, okay, over a period of time, and 2 of them from my family and others from other families. So I feel good about it. And moreover, I realized that education is the only thing which can change, and that's what my father even tried doing that. And he never went after money as such. So he was all. So I used to say, like, sometimes ask him even, why don't you earn money and put us into good schools? But he was on that front. But later on we realized that what he has earned in his life, and we are also like doing it back. I go to Amravati, and you won't believe, a couple of my friends have keep their son's name just after my name, Amit, because they think that if I keep Amit as a name, they will be intelligent and will be studying more. So that way. And nowadays, though, like my father, there are many people who are doing it. There are many institutions who are doing it, and getting them uplifted. So, and in our schools, you won't believe, Krishna, in my school where I used to study, there like used to be no toilets at all. Okay, that time in slums. But yes, scenario has changed altogether. Even slums are getting better now, like in terms of exposure, in terms of work, and they are also like finding education as the media to work. And nowadays, scenario is changing there, I would say still.
Right. I think India has always been a country of many worlds, right? So
yeah,
the word subcontinent, in some sense, is very befitting. Although there are a lot of wrong British labels on India, but the word subcontinent can truly stick, because in the urban areas we are seeing a different conundrum, isn't it, Amit? We are seeing people who just chase certificates, who just chase degrees, and for instance, 3 years ago, when we were trying to recruit interns for our company, tech interns, we found only 4 out of a pile of 800 interns. And then the funny thing is, out of 800, most people couldn't answer basic theoretical questions about programming, and we had to filter them down to 400, and then out of the 400, and then 80, and then 80. This is possibly what a lot of the other companies are doing also. But mind you, all of these people have computer science degrees. So the funny thing is, a lot of them have so-called education, but in my mind, the tyranny seems to be that we have so many people who have education on paper but don't know thing about really doing something with it. If you can't write a line of code, what is the point in you having a software engineer degree? It is one of the degrees in the world where you are taught what you're actually supposed to do. Nobody is asking you to do code in Node.js. If you can demonstrate it in COBOL or even Fortran or whatever it is that you learned, that is proof that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That is what urban centers are. But in the semi-urban and the rural centers, they don't have access to these, quality colleges. So for them, they whatever leg up they can get in terms of some quality colleges, if they hustle and then combine with their ability, they turn out to be employable people. So it's an interesting conundrum in India right now.
Yeah. Right. So Krishna, the basis of my business is I'm into skill assessment business, right? So over a period of time, I represent that skill S by dollar. So a person will not be known by the degree he possesses, but by the skill he possesses over a period of time, and that is started happening already. And there won't be any blue collar or white collar. It will be a new collar and collar of skills. So in future, according to me, and it started happening already, there won't be any computer engineers further. It will be a data scientist, a person, a cyber security professional, a cloud manager. So even in technology, it won't be only a marketer. It will be a digital marketer, LinkedIn marketer. It will be a Facebook marketer. And over a period of time, I would say the economies, and that's the basis of my business, that our economy is changing towards skill. It is becoming a skill economy, and a person will be known by the degree, by the skill he possesses, not by the degree he possesses. And that started happening already. What you are saying is so true.
Right. So let's go back to that IT services business a little bit. I always get fascinated when I hear stories about people starting and getting to a 100-member team is not a mean accomplishment, right? And those days, a lot of companies today that have grown were 100, 200, 300. And they've all, in some sense, for me, I always felt IT services was in some sort like a hamster in a cage. It was like a never-ending treadmill, right? So it was staffing. A lot of them did staffing, and a lot of them did mini projects, but all of them hit a certain scale problem at some point in time. Services doesn't scale as well as products do, especially project-based services, and that realization, when it hits you, that's when you decide that a move towards a product-based company is something that you ought to do, right? Whether you do B2B product or B2C product is a different question altogether. So what in your mind, you alluded to this a little bit, go deeper into that a little more, and how was that journey, and what were some rationalizations that you did?
Okay. So Krishna, what happens, every I would say problem, I would first say problem, goes through 4 different stages in its lifetime. First is a genesis stage, where a problem has emerged to the world, and world starts solving it. When world starts solving that problem, that genesis become custom. So you provide some custom solution, and over a period of time, when that customness is repeated many a times, and you know the know-how of the problem, the industry, the solution, the product, the technology, that customness emerges to product. So so a problem which was genesis, industry start solving as a custom. Over a period of time, it gets matured and it moves to productization of it. And when it has productized to a level where everyone is able to do it well and of same quality, it becomes a commodity, right? So if you see India as a whole country, okay, so now I am talking about the problem of India, employment and education. So when we have been ruled by Britishers for almost 150 plus years, we are culturally become listeners, where somebody will tell us what to do and we'll keep on doing it. So we become a solution provider than a problem finder as a country, as a DNA of this country. It is in our favor now, okay? Because as a DNA of the country, it sets like somebody will say something and will execute it. Okay, this was a DNA of our country. So when our country, in 90s, it became a mixed economy, open economy, I would say, and world started becoming flat. That time, what our country had as a input or a raw material was definitely English-speaking population, because we have been though we had some bad things, but we had some good things even, because Britishers ruled here. So English was a language which, though I educated through Marathi, but I speak English now, right? Over a period of time, majority of the population, and engineering mindset, and whole country became a solution provider to the problems Westerners are facing. Okay, so Westerners, because have money to solve their problems, they were the problem finders. And that's the reason they created software. We created services, right? And and we were solving the problem. So for example, I am in Amravati, and a lifestyle in Amravati, a lifestyle in Pune, lifestyle in New York is altogether different. The same way, if you are solving a problem of Westerner, even the solution provider gets a lot of money, and that is what India needed that time. And moreover, so Google might be a great company, Microsoft might be a great company, but hardly 50,000 and 100,000 people. On the contrary, TCS and Infosys, 500,000 people. This is what India needed that time. Okay, and see, that was working. We had some material. So we as a country, from genesis of outsourcing, become a custom solution provider to entire Western problems. Okay, now once we got the raw material as a whole country, whole as a industry, then people started productizing it, because we have a know of technology, we have a know of engineering, we have know of so many global domains. Okay, and so it's not me that who has created a product, but ecosystems evolves over a period of time. Though it looks like it's a straight line, but there are steps in between, right? And this is the right time where India has taken a move to productize the problems. And this is not only India, it will happen. If we don't do it, somebody else will do it, right? So we started productizing it. So after doing and what happens when you are working, so even if you see Infosys has $1 billion revenue from its Finacle product, right? So it's a 10 billion, right? Some part of their business has come through. Again, in services and product, there is a layer of solutioning even in between, or consulting even in between. So that's how country matured. And so I got a chance to work with to IBM, and there I had a tinge of productization, right? So when I started my services venture, I thought, if something can be automated, something can be productized, why don't we solve? So see, services is the business of solution providing, okay, and product is the business of problem finding. So in SaaS business, in product business, you need to be a great problem finder. The better you understand the problem of a segment, your customer segment, solution can be provided by the third party. Even IT services, I can even outsource my work over a period of time. Okay, and that's a transition I have also seen. Industry also has seen. It is not new what I'm saying, but yeah, that's how it worked. After doing the project and being a person, see, whenever you deliver a project in IT services, equity goes off with customer and you are left with nothing but some case studies. So it pains somewhere, right? And over a period of time, you think, why don't we create something, same problem, creating more and more IP out of it? And that's what we did.
So 2005 was when you started that IT services company, did you say?
Yeah, 2005. So previously for a couple of years, I was doing training, earning something. So, bolte na, like Krishna, like every entrepreneur is confident from the day one. The only thing that changes is he gets clarity over a period of time. So from the day one, I was confident. I started taking training, was moved out of IBM, become IBM trainer as a consultant, and many things. So we started it in 2005. Yes, Sujit joined in 2007, and we ran it for a few years.
And did you have any product ideas back then when you were running that startup? Is this an outgrowth? What you're doing right now eventually was it an outgrowth of what you saw there, or this is something totally new?
No, so what was happening, first as I said, I was about to get married and didn't wanted to shift out of India. So that's the reason of me shifting from job to entrepreneurship, IT services though. And from shifting from IT services to product was, we wanted to create an IP, and we knew that India is getting matured where a product will be created and it will be appreciated by entire world. So previously, now also, Mr. Modi, our Narendra Modi is trying to make India, make in India, but still we are not able to productize. Even our toiletries are IP of some other countries, right? So as a product, that thing is not appreciated and done so far. But in IT, we are as a country is matured. So we thought, let's solve a problem. And when we were in exit mode of our IT services, one problem we ourselves faced in IT services was whenever our like project manager used to complain, hey, HR has given and asked us to talk to somebody who was not at all a good fit and was a useless guy. So when we tried digging out the problem, we found out that whenever a recruiter tried to gauge a person, he or she gauges it based on the keywords in the resume. And people are very lavish in writing resume. If you have done something even for a week or for a month, you make sure that it is in your resume as an experience or proficient, right? And and they study your job description, makes the resume. And unfortunately, resume do not quantify skills. And the only pointer in recruiters, so only resume was the thing which recruiter used to gauge a person on, talk initially to that guy and put them to the interviewers. And in this process, what used to happen, out of every 10 people which are forwarded to the interviews to the interviewing team or hiring manager team, which is primarily supposed to deliver the projects, they have their own work. In taking and conducting interviews is not their primary work. They don't have any KPIs towards it. They used to feel many times, hey man, like he doesn't know the basics. He's not even an intermediate guy. And you have asked me to talk to them. And they used to complain, and that used to waste their billable hours. Okay, billable hours. And this problem we used to face every now and then. So we thought, if instead of resumes, so this was the problem we faced when we were running our own IT services venture, and Sujit and me were sitting in a CCD Cafe Coffee Day having a mocha coffee. We thought it's an interview problem, and we were having a mocha coffee, so let's start something with interview mocha as a name. And that time we were in exit, so we started the company, but formally we launched it in 2015 then.
Interesting. Do you know that the name Java came about similarly?
Yeah, coffee beans.
Yeah, Vinod Khosla and three other co-founders, they were sitting in a coffee shop, and they wanted to come up with a name, and that's how the name Java came about. So that's interesting. And then Gen Next. So that is Gen Next. It was an accelerator. That's a different startup, right? That was a different venture.
No, the same venture. In 2015, we graduated. It was a 4-month course. In March 2015, they had a demo day, I remember. So with the same interview mocha. So that time we started. So we got into the water without knowing how to swim. Okay, into SaaS, and that accelerator helped us actually. It's a Gen Next is accelerator run by Reliance in their premises in Mumbai, powered by Microsoft then. I'm not sure about now whether Microsoft is associated with them. Okay, we got into them, and see, Krishna, understand one thing, like IT services and product, these are all together two different DNA. Mm-hmm. There you have to be a solution provider. Here you need to be a problem finder. There you get new work by showing the previous case studies. Here you won't get sale, your product gets sold. So it's like, as I said, Vim versus washing dishes. Right. Okay. If for even 10 rupees ka Vim, you need to have a formula, you need to have a factory, you need to have a packaging, you need to advertise and sell 10 rupees ka stuff. Right. So it was altogether a different mentality, and it took us almost an year to unlearn IT services. So learning SaaS was easier task, but we were painted so much by IT services. Unlearning it took a time. So, but the product idea that you started with, what you're doing right now, skill assessment, was it always skill assessment, or when you initially started, was the hypothesis different? So hypothesis that time, as I said, we wanted to solve the problem of interview process, right? And that's the reason we changed our name from Interview Mocha to iMocha now. That's a different story though. Like we wanted to solve the interview problem, and the first feature or product we developed was an automated video interview, not a skill assessment at all. Okay, so we did it a diffused IP, so that was some other company. We used their API, okay, and launched our automated video interview solution. And we wanted to ask few questions, 5 minutes video interview, which interviewer will see before and decides whether to talk to that guy. And then we got into deeper and deeper into productization, and that interview mocha in interview form almost we ran for 3 to 6 months. Okay, and realized that first of all, this problem was already few people in the Western world and even in India that time started solving, and moreover we realized. This is what happened when we were talking to customers more and more and more and more. So we realized that though interview is what they need, okay, but parallelly, like after talking to customers, what we realized, Krishna, it's an interesting thing that there is the shelf life of a skill which was previously 20 years is becoming lesser and lesser. It is only 3 to 5 years, and skill matrix of entire world is changing very fast. Just to give you a context, just see an example of two of the biggest retail players of US. One is Walmart, another is Amazon. If you see in India, even Big Bazaar or DMart versus Flipkart, both serving the same purpose. But if you try to zoom up into the skill matrix of these two organizations, entirely different. Okay, one is totally tech driven, like Flipkart or Amazon is totally tech driven, though it's a retail company, but they don't have their own shops like what Walmart and these things do. So because of IT and mobile revolution, every industry is very disrupting by technology. If you see even the bank tellers' job were getting obsolete and getting replaced by ATMs and online banking, okay, and online apps. And now if you see, almost I never went to, like in my last 5 years, hardly I went to bank for getting the cash out. I always go to ATM and like do the transaction through online banking. So whether it's retail, whether it's banking, even in marketing, if you talk about digital marketing was not in place, and nowadays when you talk about marketing, first thing comes to your mind is marketing, Facebook marketing, LinkedIn marketing. So skill matrix of entire organization, as entire world was changing and was getting dominated by IT, getting dominated by software, and it was not happening only to the white collar industry. But if you see an example of a small example of tollways and parkways in US, previously there used to be a person like India who will tender the change, open the barricade, will take money from you. It is totally getting replaced by RFID, and now in India even you get a smart card which you need to paste to your car and gate will open. So even those jobs were getting replaced by RFID, CCTV and other technology. So technology is changing it very fast, and according to all researchers, almost 30% of the technology which we are working on now has changed. In 10 years, what Gen Z will work on, those jobs are not existing today. Like AI itself has created 2.2 million jobs in last 2 years, and it made 1.8 million technical jobs even obsolete. Okay, cyber security is creating 3.5 million jobs. Now we started with automated video interview as a solution, but found out that skill matrix of the world is changing so fast, and there were some companies like Pluralsight, Lynda and Udemy who were trying to solve a training part of it. But in skill economy, skill assessment will be the currency. Okay, and when doctor business grows, pathology needs to grow. So we thought skill economy needs a pathology, and that's how we thought, let's solve this problem in a crowdsourcing manner, create the skills and maintain and having your own team doesn't. So we are the only Airbnb or Uber of this industry who has all the skill assessments created through crowdsourcing as a model, and that's the reason it is scalable, and we are able to create 2,000 plus unique skills so far, which is almost double from any other competitor now. Okay, and we would like to cope up with this change, this white space of skills which is changing very fast. So nowadays skills are like your mobile, you change it with the newer version every 2-3 years, right? That way. And then we moved on to skill assessment. It took us 1.5 years to realize that, and thereafter no look back, I would say.
So you were in fact going back and asking questions. The first one was interview, because you were trying to filter out candidates that possibly did not meet. So taking the earlier discussion, there was a resume. In the resume, obviously everybody puts a positive spin on it and people wasted time. So let's give them a 5-minute automated version to decide which candidate I feel is genuine, has the skill, and who does not. And then you went back to the next evolution and then realized that through this was in some sense being solved by other players, just the interviewing part. But the real need behind it was understanding the skill of that person.
Yeah.
And what is that particular person's skill? And now all of a sudden you find that there is this huge white space, because every industry is being driven by, in some sense, I think if you just take cloud as an example, or AI as an example, or machine learning as an example, there seem to be a lot of opportunities there, at least for people, but the supply is not necessarily qualitative, which is where a skill assessment, I'm just taking those as examples, it could apply in a variety of other industries as well, right? So from that initial launch of the interview product only, and by the time you landed up with the skill assessment, that was 18 months, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you make that? What were was there any particular events or turning points that sort of led you, or was it some sort of a process that you followed in this pivot?
So basically, again, so it didn't happen in a day. As I said, it was a month and a journey together. There was another problem when our co-founder and CTO talks to one customer daily still. Okay, Sujit. He listens to customer. He's all ears of the organization, I would say. So one observation he had, which was other than this, even Krishna, while talking to the customers, in Western world, they would like to create a diverse and diversity teams and inclusions. Okay, and they wanted to be very sure about the unfair recruitment process and unfair. And in interview, what happens? You judge a person by his skin, by his country, by his location, by his gender, by his school, college, if you are or he or she is your alumni. So what happens in the while talking to the customer, we saw there is one more problem in the video interview, just gauging a person on video interview. Lot of biases comes in when you see. So see, I'm not biased, but I am, say for example, passionate about Amravati. Okay, so if a person is from Amravati, maybe some affinity. A person may be a Chennai guy getting Chennai guy, Maharashtrian getting Maharashtrian. In US, even I'm a Stanford pass out, you are a Stanford pass out. Again, some bias, right? And how to remove biases? By quantifying the skill, not quantifying a person, right? So video interview definitely is needed, but whole world needs a second opinion, whether is there any bias or fair bias happened during the process. And skill quantification makes sure, okay, that all these biases are removed and a person is judged on the skill he possesses and the level of skills he possesses and the set of skills he possesses. Definitely in interview process you may have a different opinion, but over a period of time a grown organization will ask, what went wrong? If that person has really done so well in his quantification, what went wrong? And it gets out. So skill quantification is needed at all level. And I would say interview is the second process. So screening is a layer which gets 100. And in India, as you talked about an example, in India, many a time people use tool like a skill quantification tool or interview tool to reject a candidate. Okay, but in Western world where demand and supply almost the same, they want to select the candidate. Okay, it's not about only saving time. They want to make sure they get the right person in. In India, you get one job, 100 applications. There, you get one job, 3 applications, 4 applications. Right? So we are a selection mechanism there, and selection which is multifaceted, multidimensional. So as we have 2000 plus skills, which is, so for example, if you are recruiting a cybersecurity developer, with us you can check aptitude, logic, cybersecurity skills, plus coding skills, assimilation, and finally automated video interview, and finally on our platform you can ask them to code. And so we have done that entire problem solved over a period of time.
That's pretty fascinating. How did you and Sujit come together? How did he end up being your co-founder?
So Sujit and me, I was working in a small company where so I was having around a year of experience. Sujit joined as a fresher, okay, and both very time pass, used to joke a lot, okay. So I am from Amravati, he's from Pune. I was working in Pune, and from the day one we were clear that we are going to friends, okay, work together. Then I went to IBM. I got him in IBM and get that 15,000 rupees ka referral bonus even. Okay. And since then, in IBM even we used to talk. And Sujit and me both are very passionate, and we are passionate about everything we do. Okay. I would say we are passionate about our country, we are passionate about our city, we are passionate about solving the problems nearby, and very passionate and focused about the problem we are solving through our business. Okay? Very, very, very good. So we are working in job and otherwise almost from 15 years together.
Very nice, very nice. So you are the executive, the leader of the organization. Sujit manages technology, and did that sort of magically happen? Because both of you have a coding background, both of you are engineers, but how did you decide who was going to do what?
Okay, so first of all, we are pretty clear that in a car, however proficient you are, but only one driver can be there, otherwise it will make a collision, right? And I'm a talkative person. I used to by and large a bit of influencer, and Sujit is equally good, I would say, but we mutually decide. Maybe age worked in my factor. I'm 1 year older to him. I'm not sure about it. Now I didn't wrote a single line of code in last 15 years. Okay, from the day one I was pretty sure that I'm a marketer and a sales guy than a techie, and we decided it from the day one. Okay, so multiple factors.
Interesting. You should talk about one driver in a car. And funnily, in my initial days when I was in the US, there was a manager. And he that week, I think 1 week, we were discussing about a presentation, and I was trying to lead that presentation, and everybody else was trying to mess it up because there were too many people leading. And he gave us an analogy, and it was from an experience that happened just the previous week. He and 3 of his Indian friends went whitewater rafting, and near Pittsburgh. And it so happened it was some sort of a race of sorts, and they were the only Indian team. Everyone was white, and within 5 minutes of getting into the raft, their raft had capsized, and all 4 of them were in water. And he tells me the only reason this happened because only in our boat everybody was trying to lead and nobody was rowing. Whereas in the other case, there was one person who was leading and everybody else, and that person was rowing too, and everybody else was rowing, and then there was one leader, and here everybody was strategizing and how to go, how to row, and then nobody actually was rowing, and then they hit a bump and then they capsized. So and that I use that metaphor every time. We have to make decisions. We have to decide. We shouldn't be deciding who's a leader every time. So that's interesting. I'm glad the 2 of you got that out of the way. Since you played the marketing role and more of the person who was responsible to ensure attraction, talk about the initial days? Even though you launched that interview product, how long did it take for you to get your first customer? And what was the first few customers like? What was that journey like? How did you find them?
So, as I said, when we got into GenNext, that time we used to have maybe 10-12 customers in Pune paying us 5,000 rupees a month, and we so those customers. So we were a SaaS company without a website that time. Okay, Krishna. So we were in Pune. We met them in some or other forum, and we were doing it. Okay, but that is not interesting. When I got into a GenNext and realized that, and one more thing, Krishna, interesting and a funny thing, I thought SaaS is a model in which you do not travel. it's an online model. You will be in your couch and like enjoying your life. Unlike IT services, you need to visit your customers every now and then and meet them in different countries. So I thought we need to sell sitting in India. So in GenNext, we understood that till the time you keep on meeting people, you are restricted by a location. Okay, and you need to get into a habit where you will sell online, you will serve online, and you need to get it at a part of DNA. And I'm a good listener. Okay, so literally since that day we created a 5 pages website, started writing some blogs and stuff like that, and for 2 months zero revenue. Okay, first 2 months zero revenue. Created interview product, created assessment engine, no content and stuff like that. And I happened to talk to Krish of Chargebee that time. Okay, and Krish told me a guru mantra that Amit, make sure that whatever you do, but you need to have 2 external links linking to you every day, and make sure it happens every now daily. So I got a blogger, only one blogger, a fresher, who was just answering on Quora and just keep on doing something to our page. And we were a 5-6 people team, a couple of developers, one this guy, we two, and we waited for leads to come. And in fact we were like leads to come, and we put $49 ka package month on month on website. And in the second month we were doing it, we didn't get a customer, but we got a call from Tech Mahindra in Pune, which is a giant, right? But my only sales guy that time, one junior sales guy, fresher, he asked me, "Chalo Amit, like let's go to meet Tech Mahindra." I said, "No, let's have a DNA where we'll serve global customer. We won't go and meet them in person." And बोल तो दिया बाद में, customer तो कोई थे नहीं. Like waited for 2 months, and luckily, not luckily, fortune favors the prepared mind, I would say. Second month, a gentleman, a small company called as Booksware from Germany, bought a $49 package. So I was so happy. $49 we got, and it was automatic purchase, and nobody was there to attend them. No chat even on a thing. And within a week, just I was in GenNext only that time. The morning I got like woke up and went to GenNext, and I saw 2 payments of $49 each, and one was Sephora. Okay, somebody in Sephora buying us $49 package, and second was Nielsen. Okay, the one of the biggest, okay, $49. So, and I was so excited that good I said no to Tech Mahindra to meet them in person. Okay, and then we started believing, yes, online works. Yes, it works. And then instead of creating 2 links, we started creating 3 links daily. Okay, and then in 2 years we got from zero money to 10k MRR, which is almost 8 lakh rupees, 7-8 lakh rupees a month in 2 years, with 600 customer from all the segment, like whether it was a 1 people company, a consultant, and even customers which are big. We never used to talk to them while purchasing. Like after serving, we started talking to them. So from a 1-person company to 100,000 people company, I'm not saying org level, somebody bought us. Okay, and then so that was the journey. That's how we landed up at customer. And just to realize that okay, now we need to focus more and make sure that we will sell. So we call in startup life cycle, we call this as a rollout stage, where you have multiple segments, you have multiple value proposition, you don't have predictability, you don't have repeatability. And then we understand that from rollout stage to growth stage, if you want to go, you need to have single segment, single value proposition, repeatability, and predictability. And that's what we work with Upeka. I'm not sure whether you know, we are Upeka's first startup. Okay, so and then we kept on moving up market from a Soho 1 to 10 people company, small office, home office company, to VSB 11 to 50 people company, to SMB 50 to 500 people company. Now medium segment is the sweet spot, 500 to 5,000 people IT teams, and 5,000 plus we have 3 dozens of them, even enterprises.
So Gen Next, when you were at Gen Next, with all these basic things that you did, you had 10-12 customers in Pune, you had met them, and then after that with Krish of ChargeBee, and the link creation and the blogger, that about 2 years. And in that 2 years, how many customers did you have back then?
So in those 2 years, we used to have 600 paying customers. Okay, and many of them churning, because we never understood, like we were enjoying the money, whatever small it was. Okay, and 600 customers. So good thing about us is, Krishna, when we decided to, and now I have only 200 customers. Okay, but those were $49 paying customers. Now I have a couple of them 250K, a few of them 100K, many of them 30K a year. Okay, and that kind of stuff. So again, the Indian ecosystem helped us even. Like, have you heard of SaaSBoomi?
I have.
Yeah. So SaaSBoomi and we used to. I used to always go to Chennai every year once, listen to them, meet fellow founders, understand what mistakes we are doing, and then somebody told me, like, set the course of your action by stars, not by every other passing ship. Decide your segment and go after that, and decide a segment which is large enough. Even this I heard in one of the session by Shekhar Kirani of Axel. He said, go after a segment which is large enough, differentiated category, the frequency of usage is almost daily or weekly, the duration of usage will be long, and you should be able to make a dent there. So this 5 parameters we kept applying on the segments, and after a couple of iterations we found out our sweet spot.
So what changed once you, so this, instead of having 600 small paying customers, obviously when you go up market, and the funny thing is, let me ask you this, I've always found that when you go up market, you don't necessarily need to provide anything new, right? It's just that the perceived value of the product or the offering that you have to that customer changes. So did you have to make any drastic changes, or was it almost the same product with a different customer that you were able to make that revenue?
So first of all, product wise, we didn't change anything. Okay. The only thing is, it's not in their favor even. If you have multi-segments, if you are trying to be jock of all, like if you don't stand for something, you will fall for everything, right? This is the basic thing. So if you are serving so many segments, everybody will keep on asking new features, something which appeals to them. So I would say product-wise, we didn't do any change. The only thing thereafter in a product roadmap, we were solving the mother problem and all the subset of those mother problems, which is asked by our right segment. Okay. So, but that changed thereafter. While getting this customer, how did we get more money and moved up market is just by asking. So I would say we kept on asking them higher money. They kept on paying us higher money. We demonstrated them the value, sometime instrumented it into product, sometime in presentations. Okay. So it was more of our conviction, our confidence, and our value than product. Okay? Right. In product, there were not a lot of changes.
Right.
But thereafter, whatever features we added, we are adding only for that segment. So I really don't want to be the world's biggest smuggler. I want to be a Galli ka dada, don of the street. In this Galli, I should be the best. Okay, I don't care about other segment, and the Galli is big enough.
Right. Okay? Right. So I suppose some time ago, a few minutes ago, you said an entrepreneur is always confident and he gets clarity eventually. And this is the clarity, right? So you walk, you talk to multiple people, and you also listen to the market, and the market gives you some degree of clarity as well. And I suppose, and like you said, fortune prepares the prepared. Opportunity meets preparation. That's success. A factor of luck also kicks in. But there are some paradigm shifts as well that do happen, right? the paradigm shift I'm sensing came from this motherhood problem that you were solving on. You mentioned a few minutes ago. Talk about that a little bit. How did you? It's one thing to say this is the segment I'm picking, but to know for sure, right, that yes, I picked the right segment. When did those two realizations happen?
So what happens when we had several customers, many of them. So if you do analysis of it, then there are always some customers who are easy to sell, easy to serve, are successful with you, having having an expansion potential, and can do advocacy for you. Right. So if you keep doing this, if you keep applying this formula of 5 formula, easy to acquire, easy to sell, easy to acquire, easy to serve, expansion potential, and advocacy potential, then you find out that out of the 7-8 segment, this is the segment which I should go after. I would say value you more, and you are more market fit for that market than any other market. And then you need to find out, is it a founder market fit even? So if you are a founder who cannot do enterprise sales or a DNA into it, and you are going to enterprises, won't work. All segments are working. It's your call. It should be a founder market fit plus product market fit. Okay. So in our case, both of us had worked in IT services. IT services is all enterprise. You have bigger, and we were into enterprises there, not a website business. Okay. So we thought it's an enterprise segment. It's a founder market fit. It's a product market fit. These 5 things are together. And when this context or paradigm was changed, then what happened? Product roadmap was made accordingly. So whenever a new feature request came, instead of that feature request, we asked what problem this feature is solving. And if that problem is attributing to the problem, which is the mother problem of this segment, then only we took that into our product roadmap. And then we found out that previously it was a 10 people tech team who was working on only 20% of the right thing. Now whole 10 team is working only on one thing. So we are becoming more stronger in depth of that segment. So this is from product roadmap point of view. From action channel point of view, once you understood a segment with those 5 parameters, okay, which we call it as an ICP, ideal customer profile. And once we found it out, those guys hang out at different places. They have some similar behavior. They go to some similar events. They are doing some kind of similar activities. They search, so their searches are similar, right? If they attend any events, those events are similar. Like now we are a IP co-sale ready of Microsoft. So they need you to come through some brand, and you should look like a brand. Okay. So then when we stop all other things and get deeper into those customer behavior, we found out a right product roadmap, we found out a right traction channel. Okay. And once these 2 things are found out well, the whole organization, be it in our case product, which consists of engineering and content, plus marketing, sales, CS, account mining, whole team should be well oiled towards that segment, towards that product roadmap, and towards that traction channel.
Interesting. So, and what were some inflection points that put you on the 10K MRR, which is about $120,000 annual recurring revenue, to 2 million MRR, 5 million MRR,
to 2 million ARR, 200K MRR,
200K MRR, 2 odd million annual recurring revenue, right? That's a massive shift. Did you suddenly feel like a rich man?
Rich by money, yes. And moreover, good thing about us is, Krishna, the customers we have an expansion potential to go to $10 million in next 3 years. Same customers. If I don't get any single customer in next 2 years, right, these customers with hardly any churn will grow to $10 million, and that's the beauty. And those formulas working out. As I said, we have 3 dozen, almost 40 of the customers who can pay us 10K to 250K. 6-7 of them are already paid, and others are on the way.
So in the 600, right now you focus on skill assessments for IT service firms, correct?
Yeah, perfect.
And so in some sense, if you were to talk about founder market fit, you're a techie, Sujit is a techie, you've run a IT services firm, and it feels like, based on what you yourself shared, it feels like at the back of your mind, this problem's been sort of evolving in your mind from 2005, from that interview difficulty stage to the point where you are right now. So you decided, okay, have you ever seen it that way, or does it look like that today?
So what happened? Like I would say, see, as I say, founder is always confident in most of the cases. It's not. It's only clarity which he gets over a period of time, and more clarity about their segment, their channel. So I would say it's not us who drove this change. It is customer who made us grow this change over a period of time. The only thing is we kept our ears open. I would say we listened to them, and I would say we have grown almost in last 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Say in 3 years 20 times, in 2 years 10 times. But like in terms of MRR, in last 3 years we from 10k to 200k MRR, right? Almost 20x in 3 years. Okay, but it is our customer who made us do that. And you enjoy more, right? If you create more and more value for some segment, you solve their real problems. So it's driven by customer, Krishna. Then our mindset, I would say, being mostly bootstrapped so far, just got some supporters, angels. Still, I would say we are slow. We could have done better, but yeah, we are enjoying our own. As you said, we are newly rich a bit though. Take it, so enjoying this status for a while. Let's see.
So in that, in the 200 were not a subset of the 600, correct?
So now, luckily, it was out of 600. We used to have like 50, like 5, 10, 15 customers of this sort even. Okay. But we never looked at it. So we were internal, like we were looking at $49 a package. We were not looking at customers' problem that time, like right. Initially. And when we started, so we, as I said, Sephora and Nielsen was our customer as a second and third customer. They also don't know now. These two are not our customers though, because we at initial level we didn't realize that enterprises to SMB buys the product, and enterprises you need to help them buy the product.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it took us a time, but we used to. Ours is not an enterprise deal at the first go. Many a times, it's land and expand, where some team, some department, some location from some global location, a bigger company is buying us maybe a small package of 1 to maybe 5k a year, and then after making them successful and taking advocacy from them and doing customer marketing, we open up dozens of different locations, different departments within the same organization, and grew that account from 5k to 100k and beyond.
So did you have to change your whole growth plan and your sales process because your type of customer was changing, or you still kept it online, the content driven method?
So currently, still it is online and content driven in its majority, 80%. But in sales, new sales, in terms of expansion, we are totally changed. We have dedicated customer success manager with only few customers they are handling. Okay, and account manager. So with every 2 customer success guy, there is an account manager who are responsible just for few accounts and make sure they grow. Okay, right. So in sales methodology, landing, nothing great has changed because it's still department wise. Okay.
So let me hold you there. From those $49 customers, all of a sudden, you changed the type of the customer that you were acquiring, and you didn't change anything in terms of your content and your approach.
So we didn't change. So as I said, we change our approach and content only to listen to that segment. So whatever they needed, we got it into product roadmap, and that's a cumulative thing which is getting us better and better for that segment.
So in that 600, that 15 odd customers, which were like the 200 that you have today. So my question is, how did that 15 become 200?
Okay.
So the remaining 185.
So what happened when we realized these are the kind of so see, for example, previously also it was SEO, it was content marketing, okay, and in 2 to 3 years we got only 15-20 of them, right? So you are asking in 2 years how it gone from 15 to 200 now, right? So what happened when we started focusing on them, our keyword set has also become narrowed. Okay, and we are very strengthened on that. Our content marketing, our blog, our guides are already focused. So basically we have a strategy called as Gole Mein Gola. So first 2 years, every quarterly meeting, I used to put a gola in between. So we'll give all others off, only this. Okay, and once we decided upon a gola, everything on that gola, and like now we know how to get them in. And so this is about 80% of it. As I said, 80% is still working the same. The only thing is now focus on those blogs distributed at places where they hang out. Okay, but something that has worked for us is Microsoft so far. So when we realized that when you are targeting medium and enterprise segment, you need to have a strong channel which has got a global GTM. And Microsoft is a very, very cooperative and startup friendly. If you do create value for them, they do create a lot of value for them. And we are totally on Azure. Definitely their consumption also grows. As we grow, they get more money. Okay, but we started Microsoft a few months back, and Microsoft as a traction channel is also working well for us. Though initial things, but we are landing bigger now. Okay, in couple of cases, but I won't say that it had happened because it's only a 6 months old story. So I cannot say that it's success still, but early indicators are through Microsoft will go global, and that too at a big level.
What sort of a mentor network have you established that helps you in some of this thinking? I know Prasanna at Upeka is definitely that, and being part of Upeka has possibly given you a lot of clarity as well. I'll come to that next, but what sort of a mentor network have you?
So Krishna, like attending SAS Bhumi and SASX earlier, okay, it used to be called SASX earlier. I would say Chennai gang helped us a lot, okay, and I can proudly say almost all of them are my angels, okay, and investors. Apart from that, I'm not sure whether to take all their names, but Khadim from Whatfix, Yamini from Waymo, Girish from Fishworks, Suresh from Kissflow, Krish from ChargeBee, Prasanna, few folks, and somehow somehow I'm not sure, but out of my 12 angels, 8-9 are from Chennai and Tamil Nadu, okay, and one from Pune, Vaibhav Bitter Labs. These guys are constantly now I also know who is expert of what and which question to ask them, but they are a call and WhatsApp away or a scheduling away from me. And whenever I feel any problem, because I know who has done what and what failed, so I ask them, and I'm fortunate that I would say about business, maybe I can vouch out a little, but about network, I can vouch for my network. These guys really help me every now and then as per my need. I also don't ask them any useless question though. Okay.
So Amit, let me ask you one question. I don't know if you've been asked this before, and giving you the example of the recruitment that we tried 3 years ago, where we had to sift through 800 people to get to 4. At what point of time does what you are doing start taking a crack at the education system? So what I mean by that is, today when a campus recruitment happens, right? Now there are 100 students to choose from, but there is no gauge on top of their head saying that this is the skill level of this student, this is the skill level of this student, this is the skill level of this student, right? So if you've seen MasterChef, there are these 3 judges who hold up numbers, right? Today, our education system, a lot of the education system is purely just input driven, right? There is very rarely output measurement that happens. So upstream, whereby you take all of these skills, and because see, at the end of it, every one of them wants a job, right? And then in order to get a certain job, all they have to do is assess if they have that level of skill. So without looking at other sectors and other industries where this could have a huge impact, at what point of time do you see this becoming upstream, going into colleges, educational institutions where you're saying, okay, you taught them this, your coursework can get them this, XYZ. When does that happen? Will that happen?
Yeah. So first of all, Krishna, this will happen with iMocha. So skill assessments, or like Google is for search, photocopy is for Xerox. Skill assessment should be a synonym of iMocha. This is the vision we have. Okay. So like think of Google search and it is Google. Think of skill assessment and it should be iMocha, and it will happen. So definitely I thought about it and we have a definite path towards it. I know how it's going to happen. The only change is this will happen with the US population in our case, because majority of our customers are from US and they are screening the US population. So I'll tell you how will it happen in our case. So currently we have out of 200 customer, majority of them are from US, and for this 2000 odd skills, they are screening the population of United States, the job there. And out of these 200, few customers are the customers who are the partner customer. So for example, we have a customer called as Cybrary, which is a Udemy for cybersecurity. We have a customer called as Revature, which is I would say again tied up with 150 universities in US. Through them, we are already present in universities and all. So the thing will happen. So now imagine a scenario, sir. So let me the vision how I imagine it. A US graduate learning at university level, and he's getting screened without knowing it is getting screened at Interview Mocha, but he's getting screened multiple times through this partner ecosystem what we have. Okay, those are the guys who are connecting colleges to the corporates there. Okay, so a final year guy or education person getting screened 5-10 times on 3-4 years in his education career without knowing he's getting but we know that he's the guy. Then when he's applying for a job, he's getting screened for university recruitment or campus recruitment, and enterprises are using Interview Mocha. Again, his timeline of skill is maintained by us. Then when he's getting upskilled into the organization, we are into L&D even, he's getting screened multiple times. Okay, a day will come, we will become a LinkedIn of skill assessment. A person unknowingly will maintain his skill timeline. Okay, and a day will, which is as I guess it will be 3 to 5 years from now, where when a company will buy Interview Mocha product and skill a guy, will tell them how he fares in that location, maybe Boston, how he fares in that college, percentile wise, how he fares in that industry, how he fares globally, and we would be a kind of credential management as far as skill is concerned, and where decisions will be taken, and we'll be using this metadata. I won't say we'll be giving them a specific and won't do any confidentiality bridges, but we'll get them where this person stands. So we, over a period of time, will become a LinkedIn of skill assessment. Now, how people go to LinkedIn and see what is, the only thing is we won't do it directly, we'll do it through the partner system.
Audacious, grand and scary. I hope at some point in time, degree of serendipity, right? Because many times assessment. I'm a big believer of serendipity, and I won't call it luck or coincidence, but many times quantitative assessments, and this is by no means quantitative or qualitative, right? You are a holistic skill assessment platform. At some point in time, an opportunity, for example, can make a world of difference as well, right? So there is always an X factor. I'm sure, as your algorithm and whatever you have at the back end matures, it is going to make for that. But that's amazing.
Even Krishna, we are through AI, ML, NLP, we have created a team owning a couple of best engineering colleges in the India to work on it. We'll be able to quantify the interviews even over a period of time, and after interview we'll make the skill assessment happen. So we will be quantifying skills, and we'll try to make sure that it will be automated at all level possible. So interviews will also be quantified sooner or later, and we'll do it as the first company.
Amit, I know you answered this question already, but in some sense, for me, the Indian market, I think, not for you, holds a lot of promise. But for every new invention out there, I always get the feeling. For example, take driverless cars. अरे इंडिया में इतना भीड़ लगा रहता है, इतने एक्सीडेंट होते हैं. We need driverless cars here more than there. For right. So every invention you think of, every creation you think of, from a real need perspective, I always feel we need it here than there. Although to achieve really different outcomes, right? Skill that works very, very similarly, and there are all these. Imagine how it could change the entire education system in India, right? Because people today, when 1 million students come out, a lot of people say only 20% of them are employable. A lot of that, right? And the way it is made to look is that it is somehow a fault of the student. That's how it is made to look like.
Yeah.
Apart from, right? It's a combination of variety of other factors. The educators. A lot of colleges just exist in name. I've seen colleges which just have a 4-floor building, and it's a computer science college or a degree college. God knows, what kind of teachers show up there, what kind of, subjects are really the quality of the education there. So imagine you started putting two things. One is the skill of the students coming out. So taking your example of the skill timeline, right? If the student is already skilled, he comes out of this college and the college has barely made a difference to him, right? Now that's the fault of the college, and that's not the fault of the student, right? The student definitely has to apply himself, and in India, most of the educational and the healthcare institutions are owned by politicians, and where it is easy to sit down and then input, rent seeking mentality, input based. Money collection. But I know whenever this is adopted, not just in information science, but globally, nationally, across a variety of industries, from worksmen to craftsmen to people working in very, very normal jobs. Take government offices. What is the skill level of those employees, right? They don't have dedication, most of them. And again, they are not to blame there, right? The system makes it so. I've seen even driven people who are just driven to the ground, right? So I see a lot of possibility here. It's unfortunate that it's one more awesome, product, and that has to serve some other, geography as opposed to India.
No, I would say, if you start somehow, that's a perceived value of product. If you start serving India and go to Western world, they are okay. But if you serve US customer, Indians find it very easy to adopt that product. Okay.
No. I don't think you should stop serving. I think I'm just saying somewhere in your evolution, this is, and maybe not even you guys doing it, somebody taking the concept and adopting it, because all of those are heavy application, and by definition, Indian customers don't pay, so you're possibly wasting your time there because you're a foreign application. So one last, as we wind down, one more question is, you have built a product that assesses the skill level of other employees, right? So that means you must have had a terrific team. You must have put together a terrific set of people. Talk about that team and how you what's the philosophy that you followed that has worked for you to put that terrific team together.
So basically, our culture, which is painted on both the walls of all the 2 floors, and our organization is work happy. Okay, and we so basically, first I'll talk about creating so many skills. So it's crowdsourced. It is mostly process driven. So we have got that engine developed in which this miracle of creating 2000 skills, where you need 1,000 people to develop that, and we have only 6 people content team who is getting it developed. So it's a Uberization of that problem which we are solving through. In terms of team creation, even Krishna, it has gone through a stage where multiple segments to single segment. Previously, we used to get to evaluate only those guys who used to come to us and are smart and passionate. Nowadays, when we recruit, we are pretty clear about. So we as an organization believe in expertization. Like we don't I would say appreciate MBBS. We appreciate neurosurgeon, right? The same philosophy in our organization. We make sure that people are successful if you ask to do them one thing at a time, and which is their strength, and they have the ability. Capabilities can be developed, okay, but they should have the basic ability, IQ, whatever is required for that job to be done, and just let them do that for a period of time. Like we are focusing on the organization, one segment and one thing, we focus in our team even. So our SDR only puts up a demo, okay, and he needs to get. So in India, typically what happens, the thing is in Indian IT industry even, if you have 5 years of experience, you try to be a lead or a project manager. As against in US, for 20 years they have been coding. So they become coding expert and create software, not services, right? The same way, what we are trying to do, one person, one job. And if you want to change that, so first make yourself excellent in that job, and then you have internally even an opportunity to get into another job. But if you cannot do your job better, you won't be able to do other job better even, right? So that philosophy we have, and we recruit a person who is coachable with some skill. So like nowadays we are affording from last 6 months like good guys. Previously though, we were creating a team which has got a potential and coachable and some little experience in the thing we want them to do, and we used to have get them trained and up to the job, okay. And moreover, I have seen that people join with your vision. So now I'm fortunate that I'm able to get employees from MP, Gujarat, Chennai, Bangalore, moved to Pune, okay, because they believe in what we are doing in terms of first of all, we are solving a problem which is worth solving, a big problem, and we believe in sharing. So we got a compensation plus ESOP structure, which in the past has grown significantly. So they believe in that, and and we are fortunate. And our employees even write a lot on LinkedIn themselves, and that is having a rippling effect, which is getting more and more better employees for us.
Awesome. Amit, in your very down-to-earth manner, you spoke about so many big things that have been transformative. In building a skill library with 6 people, and it's no mean accomplishment. It's really smart thinking, right? It's like Wikipedia of skills.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But something that could be really well and reapplied and help to assess and put a skill meter on somebody's head saying, hey,
yeah,
that's amazing. And what you've done in terms of the reorientation speaks to your humble roots, because you haven't come into any of these saying that, hey, I know all the answers, so therefore there isn't much that I can get. And to be honest, there are a lot of fluff-driven accelerators and then incubators out there as well, right? All they'll give you is a desk and a space, and while that is helpful, that very rarely creates the right environment to succeed. And you already articulated your grandiose vision. For me, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's out there. It feels very tangible to me.
Yeah.
Right. It feels very tangible, very doable. The only aspect is you have to exist for a certain amount of time for that to happen. Because if I'm applying, I'm a high school grad right now, and then if I have to build, you have to build some history around me. You have to exist for a while, and then I have to go to the ecosystem. So there's a lot of variables in that, but all of it feels very, very believable and very, very real to me.
So it started happening with graduates and undergrads from last 3 years. Let's see, in next 3 or 4 years, will we be able to reach that stage? But we started benchmarking already.
Right. Awesome. So where will we see Amit and then Sujit with iMocha in the next, let's say in 3 years and the next 5 years? What's the next peak that you'll scale?
So first of all, you called us Wikipedia of skills. We call ourselves as Amazon of skills. Okay, so currently we have 2,000 skills in terms of offering. We should be a partner of choice for every medium and enterprises across the globe when it comes to skills. So we have a good plan to create 5,000 plus skills that matters to the world. Okay, so this is the first thing from product point of view. Second, 3 to 5 years down the line, I won't talk about revenue. We are almost doubling, a little more than doubling our revenue every year. So it will reach somewhere. I'm not much worried about it, but I can surely say in 3 to 5 years from now, I will have at least 200 plus customers paying us 100K and above. So we are solving that much problem for them at least. Okay, and more, even more. But 200 people paying us more than 100K with at least a dozen of them paying us even $1 million to solve their problem org-wide. Okay, individually. In terms of employees, I would say in 3 to 5 years, at least in Pune, there will be 30-40 people. Their ESOP value will be worth at least a BMW. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure whether we'll take fund, we'll not take fund, but the valuation of the company with some source, with their ESOP, the ESOP kind of ESOPs they're holding. So out of 60 employees, 50-60 employees we have currently, half of them will be crorepati in INR terms.
So then BMW 7 series then. I meant BMW 3 series, 5 series, 7 series.
But again, so Krishna, again, I'm not sure like what will be the scenario and price that time, but I'm sure about it. I'm sure about us. We'll grow 2x, 3x, and valuation will keep on getting that multiple of 15, 10, the least. In terms of value, we'll be serving mostly medium and enterprises, and with currently our entire team is in India. We'll have maybe 20-30 people team in US and maybe some other countries even in 5 years from now. And you will find me talking, and yes, you will find me in Amravati during all these times every month or two.
Here's what I think. I don't know if I were to dream for you. The reason I use the Wikipedia analogy is because Wikipedia is crowdsourced while Amazon is not crowdsourced. That's the fundamental reason. While Wikipedia is non-profit, Amazon is for profit. So I suppose a merger of Wikizon, maybe we can call it Wikizon. but otherwise, I think being the default choice, without using anything, when you think skill assessment, think iMocha, just like searches for Google. I think that's the vision that you.
Yeah, and like that we started doing in SEO at least. Currently it is skill assessment software, but soon in 1 year will be skill assessment, will be iMocha, even on Google. So you will get indicators everywhere.
I suppose, you should start saying what's the cost of a wrong hire. And as soon as you ask that question, you jump from 100K to 1 million right there, because the cost of a wrong hire is easily $250,000 because that person is in the ecosystem at least for a year or so. And then by the time, he spent a lot of your time, money, resource, he or she, right? Yeah. So I think it's sooner than later. This has been a very, very no holds down to earth, a tangible conversation, and put in a very subtle and simple way. I am very humbled by your background and your growth, and you've still retained all of that humility, Amit. Maharajas of Scale, I know we'll host you again when you scale the next peak, so we can see what that vantage point looks like. We know you're going to make rapid strides into other areas as well. I'm sure that opportunity opens up. This morning I was listening to Elon Musk's biography, And it so happened that in 1998 or 1999, there was a merger that his original company prior to X.com, which he merged with PayPal, he wasn't looking out for any acquisition. All of a sudden, out of the blue, Compaq came in and then offered $307 million for it, and they took it. Many times, serendipity brings us a lot of massive shifts, and I'm sure you'll see it too, right? So we wish you the best. And in closing, any words of wisdom for people starting out and entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah. So I would say to entrepreneur, understand if you are into SaaS, you are into business of problem solving. Get deeper and deeper into a problem, and problem which is worth solving. Problem should be big. Otherwise, nothing. Thanks, Krishna. Thanks for opportunity to get on to Maharajas of Scale. Though my wife asked me why Maharajas of Scale, why not Maharanis of Scales? Even I said, okay, I'll talk to Krishna about it. Okay, that's it.
You could have possibly called it M&M's of Scale, and then the Hershey chocolate company would have come after me for but when we do have a lady speaker.
No, I told her that it's Rashtrapati, it's president, regardless of she's not a Pati. Pati Patel was a Rashtrapati, but she's still Rashtrapati. So it's right. Rashtrapati, right? In India, we call it as Rashtrapati. See,
wrong.
Pratibha Tai is from Amravati, if you know. Okay, she's okay, but she used to. So I told my wife that though she used to call as Rashtrapati, it's the same way. It's Maharajas when it is like Maharajas of Scale. So it is not gender bias.
Awesome. Thanks, Amit. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
We'll be in touch and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks, Krishna. Thanks, Tania. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this story. If this story made a difference to you, tell us by leaving a comment on the website or our social media channels. Help us spread the love by subscribing, liking, and sharing our show. We welcome speaker suggestions and collaboration. Write to me at tanya@maharajasofscale.com.